Chaz and Alexis are two of the many engines that work on the Newcastle Central Railroad. Chaz is a Hudson-type locomotive and is in charge of the fast passenger and mail trains. Alexis is a 282 Mikado-type engine and mostly handles branch line work as well as yard switching. She also acts as a helper engine to Chaz on the climb out of St. Nicholas Station. One autumn evening, Bullet had just returned to South Plainsville with the flyer. It was a smooth run with no issues. Shahad had taken away his empty passenger cars, and he was going to head toward the coaling tower, so he went out to fill up with coal in the morning before his next run. One of the tracks under the coaling tower was being repaired. Mr. Wu, the railroad's night manager, was overseeing the operation. A derail and blue flag was set up for protection. It was a good thing too, because the switch toward the track that was closed was left open. Bullet carefully traversed the switches headed toward the coaling tower. He then noticed, much to his horror, that the switch was set for where they were working. "Oh no, stop, stop!" he shouted to his driver. His driver, wasting no time, applied the brakes. But Bullet was moving too fast to stop in an instant. He swerved onto the occupied track, hit the derail, and all 6 of his drive wheels came off with a loud crunch. Luckily, no one was hurt, and the derail had actually done its job. "Which one of you left the switch open?" Mr. Wu asked, clearly very exasperated. Mr. Cushman, the other night manager, saw everything from his office. He didn't say anything, but let out a very aggravated sigh. Mr. Wu sent home the workmen that had left the switch open, and the rest of them turned their attention to helping get Bullet back on the rails. Ian had brought over the wrecker, while Jihad and Michelle coupled up behind to take the strain. "He's gonna need repairs," Mr. Wu sighed. "What are we gonna do about the flyer tomorrow morning?" "I called the Newcastle Central," answered Mr. Cushman. "They have an engine that's suitable that they'll loan us." Alexis and Chaz were in the roundhouse. They were talking about their day when Chaz surprisingly saw his driver and fireman return. "What's going on?" he asked. "You just left." "Sorry, old boy, there's an emergency on the Southern United Railroad. Their regular Hudson locomotive has derailed, and they asked for you to cover his passenger trains until he's fixed." "How long will he be gone for?" asked Alexis. "We don't know," replied the fireman, "but I don't think it'll be long. The derailment was pretty minor for what we're told." "And what about my regular jobs?" Chaz asked. "Don't worry," said the driver. "They'll be looked after." He pulled the throttle and Chaz departed. "Goodbye, Alexis," he called. "Don't worry, I will be back soon." "I hope so," Alexis sighed. The next day, Alexis was working in the yard when she heard a loud air horn. A big 484 locomotive came in, pulling Chaz's regular passenger train. And came to a stop at the station, and Alexis crossed over to the main line to give it a push, like she did when Chaz normally pulled the train. When the engine saw this, he was livid. "And just what do you think you're doing?" "First of all," said Alexis crossly, "that was rude. Second of all, I'm helping you up the hill." "Listen, Toots." "Toots!" shouted Alexis. "I am a 484 Niagara locomotive. I know of Chaz. He's only a Hudson, not as strong and as powerful as me. I don't even know why they give him this train if he can't even handle the hill on his own." Alexis' safety valves lifted. "Chaz may be smaller, but he's definitely fast, and twice the engine you'll ever be." "Twice the engine I'll ever be? Ha! I'd like to see him try." And as if to prove it, he blasted his air horn and pulled off, leaving a very furious Alexis behind. 3 days had passed, and still Chaz hadn't returned. On this particular day, it was raining. Alexis was switching the yard when Niagara pulled in. When he spotted Alexis, he just gave her a very sly smirk, and Alexis shot him a very dirty look in return. Once the passengers boarded, Niagara puffed away, headed for the hill. It's obvious that rain can make tracks very slippery, but when you get leaves involved in autumn, it could make it 10 times worse. Niagara charged at the hill. He was thinking about a nice rest he was going to have at the end of his run when... "Oh no, I'm slipping," he shouted. His driver applied sand to the rails, but it did no good. Niagara moved slower and slower until finally he came to a stop with spinning wheels. Come on, nearly there. Then suddenly he felt his wheels stop turning. "Why'd you stop me?" he questioned his driver. "Keep going on like that and you're gonna rip your valve gear apart. We're gonna have to call for help." Alexis was still in the yard when the call came in. Her crew hopped into her cab, and when they tried to release her brakes and move her toward the main line, they found that they were locked solid. Alexis simply refused to move. "Come on, Alexis, stop fooling around. We have to go," called her driver. "After the way that engine treated me and said those rude things about Chaz, no, he can stay there all night for all I care." Her driver sighed. "Okay, I feel you on that. But what about the coaches? And the passengers? They haven't been rude to you, have they?" Alexis thought for a moment. "All right, I'll go." She finally let her brakes off and they were on their way. Alexis found the train halfway up. She gently coupled up to the back of it while laying sand and began to push. And soon, with much hard work, the train began to move again. Soon, they reached the top. Alexis was uncoupled, and after receiving clearance, she reversed back down the hill. That evening, Chaz had returned. Alexis was happy to have him back and was just about to tell him about Niagara when the engine in question arrived at the roundhouse. "Alexis," Niagara said quietly, "thank you for helping me up the hill today. I'm sorry about all the rude stuff I said to you and all the stuff I said about you, Chaz." Alexis was quiet at first, but Chaz gave her an approving smile. "Okay, I accept your apology." "And I do too," Chaz added. "Thank you, Bo," Niagara replied. "So, Chaz, did anything interesting happen on the Southern United Railroad?" asked Alexis. "Actually," said Chaz, "I did have an adventure." "Oh, please tell me about it," pleaded Alexis. "Do you mind if I stay and listen?" Niagara asked. "Sure," said Chaz happily, both engines listening closely. "But I can't say any more or I will spoil the next story."
Gentlemen, forward to attention, please. Train number 1 to Susquehanna is now arriving on track number 2. For your safety, please stay clear of tracks on this behind number 1 lane.
Alexis and Chaz were in the roundhouse. They were talking about their day when Chaz surprisingly saw his driver and fireman return. "What's going on?" he asked. "You just left." "Sorry, old boy, there's an emergency on the Southern United Railroad. Their regular Hudson locomotive has derailed, and they asked for you to cover his passenger trains until he's fixed." "How long will he be gone for?" asked Alexis. "We don't know," replied the fireman, "but I don't think it'll be long. The derailment was pretty minor from what we're told." "And what about my regular jobs?" Chaz asked. "Don't worry," said the driver. "They'll be looked after." He pulled the throttle and Chaz departed. "Goodbye, Alexis," he called. "Don't worry, I will be back soon." "I hope so," Alexis sighed. When Chaz arrived in South Plainsville, it was very late indeed. He didn't want to wake the other engines, so he decided to sleep under the coaling tower. The next morning, Larry was the first engine up. He was surprised to see a Hudson locomotive under the coaling tower. He pulled alongside and said, "Chaz, what are you doing here?" Larry had arrived back late himself the night before and was unaware of Bullett's accident. "I'm here filling in for Bullet after a derailment last night," Chaz explained. "Well, let me say, it'll be great to have you around here for a while," Larry smiled. Later that morning, Chaz took over the flyer. Since Chaz and Bullet are both Hudsons, they performed basically the same. It was almost as if Bullet never left. The other engines were very impressed. A few days later, Chad departed South Plainsville with the flyer on time. Up the line in the siding was Kevin, who was looking very glum. He was taking some hoppers to be loaded with gravel, but one of the air hoses on the hoppers had been damaged, so he had to wait in the siding until it was repaired. Kevin was due to clear the junction before the flyer had even got there. The tower operator near Kevin was aware that Kevin had stopped in the siding, but he neglected to notify the tower operator ahead of him. Chaz passed by whistling cheerfully to Kevin. All signals ahead were green. "All clear," called his driver. The tower operator at the junction was making a cup of tea. All his signals were set, and he was just waiting to see Kevin pass by. He then heard the sound of a fast puffing. That doesn't sound like Kevin. He's going way too fast for the branch line, especially with freight cars. He looked up and saw Chaz fast approaching the junction. "Wait, what? He's not supposed to be here yet." It was obviously too late to set the signals to danger, so he grabbed his flag and ran out onto the steps. By the time he began raving frantically, it was too late. Chaz thundered by the signal tower and over the bridge. Chaz didn't know the line, so he assumed he was being rerouted and would reach the main line further down. Chaz soon reached a small station. They saw a man waving a lantern frantically. Chaz's driver stopped him alongside the station. "What's going on?" asked Chaz. "I'll tell you what's going on. You're not meant to be here." "What do you mean?" protested the driver. "We are meant to be here. Our signals were green." "That may be true, but you're not meant to be here," the station agent said again. "So this doesn't meet the main line further down?" Chaz questioned. "Nope, it ends at a quarry further up the line." Buses were arranged to take Chaz's passengers to the nearest mainline station so they could continue their journey. Chaz felt very silly indeed. Chaz then soon reversed carefully to the junction. He then ran around his train and then towed it backwards to Denville, since it was the nearest station with a big turntable. Chaz then had to wait in Denville Yard all day until the main line was clear. The other engines were kind and welcoming toward him. Well, except for Dean and Benny, who teased them and made remarks about how mainline engines should know better than to get lost. Chaz only ignored them. Once he received clearance, he headed back to the roundhouse. The main thing he was really worried about was seeing Miss Caldwell. Miss Caldwell was well known in the railroad industry, having started out as a locomotive fireman, then driver, then road foreman, and now the manager of her own railroad. She had a reputation for being tough as nails and not taking any nonsense. When he arrived at South Plainsville sheds, Larry was the only engine there. And as he suspected, Miss Caldwell was waiting for him. Miss Caldwell, he pleaded, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." But then she cut him off. "Chaz, I'm not upset with you," she said. "You're not?" Chaz asked, a little surprised. "No, it was that stupid tower operator. He should have alerted the other one that you were coming through instead of Kevin. You're a visitor here. You don't know the line." Chaz wheezed steam with a sigh of relief. "Don't believe what other engines say about her," Larry told Chaz. "Miss Caldwell is tough, but she's also fair." "You've done very well for my railroad these past couple of days," Miss Caldwell said. "But it is time for you to head home." As soon as she said that, Bullet backed in, good as new. Bullet looked at Chaz and smiled. "Thank you so much for taking care of my passengers. It's good to know they were in good hands." "Oh, you're very much welcome," Chaz replied. Chaz's crew boarded, and he headed for home. "Goodbye, Chaz," called Larry. "Hope to see you again soon." "Me too," Chaz called back. He collected some cars from the yard and headed out onto the main line. He couldn't wait to get back and tell Alexis what had happened and also hear about what she went through while he was gone. But we all know that story well, don't we?
Surprises, surprises, they come all shapes and sizes. You never know what's round the bend. It's life in life, it's right at bend. That's why there's surprises with all their highs and lows. You come out top, or come full stop. Who knows, who knows, who knows? You're halfway up a hillside and all is going fine. When all at once a snow slide comes right across the line. You think you're really done for, but help is on its way. You'd be surprised how often that someone saves the day. Surprises, surprises, they come all shapes and sizes. You never know what's round the bend. It's might in life, it's might at bend. That's why there's surprises with all the highs and lows. You come out top or come full stop. Who knows, who knows, who knows? Suspension.